Just look at you, chasing spies. England, the Empire. MI6. So old-fashioned.
I think the big attraction was the challenge of something completely new and completely different, you know, and I'd always been a Bond fan. Daniel approached me and said, you know, are you interested? And the moment he said it, I thought, yes, what an amazing idea.
How much do you know about fear?
All there is.
One of the things that, you know, what I was so happy about with Sam when we first started talking is that, you know, he's a Bond fan, first and foremost, and as am I, and you want to make the best Bond movie you can. I know that sounds simplistic, but that's the deal.
I felt like I had a lot of people who wanted me to make my Bond movie, and I think when you've made 22, what they want is someone who has an individual vision of the story they want to tell. And they did a very good job of not telling me every day, look, it's the 50th anniversary, you have to make it good, you know. Well, that's implicit. We all want to make a good movie. So weirdly, I didn't feel that much pressure on set. It was when I looked outside, you know, and talked to other people and heard how excited they were or how, you know, how many opinions they had. That then started to worry me more, you know. I had to kind of keep myself blind to all that and just focus on what I felt was the story.
Everybody needs a hobby.
So what's yours?
Resurrection.
When the script came to me and I read it, I thought about it for what it was, which was a great story, great material, and great character that gave me the opportunity to do something with it. And then once I talked to Sam Mendes and he gave me his input and his great notes about that character that they were offering me, what he wanted me to do is to bring options to it and play with it.
Mommy was very bad.
Many times on the set, I felt that we were doing kind of this low-budget independent movie by the way Sam was treating the scenes, and it seems like an acting laboratory. And having in mind that it's a James Bond movie, I would say that's very unusual.
Generally, making this movie felt like making a little independent movie rather than a big action movie with, you know, millions of pounds at stake. It really didn't feel like that. Usually on a movie this size, you do feel very much like a small cog, you know, you really do. But Bond is very different because it's ultimately, you know, a family-run business, and you really do feel that. So it's much more intimate, it's much more collaborative. You definitely have a voice.
You're made very, very welcome by Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson. So you become like a family, and they treat you absolutely beautifully, and you work in glorious sets, and you have generally a very, very nice time.
We have a wealth of talent on this film, so as far as, you know, the writers got together a great script, and but we continued working on that script all the way through. And one of the pleasures for me and what Sam allowed me to do was to relax a lot more on this film, because I could concentrate just on playing the part. But also, when you have such good words to speak, you can sort of play around with those and improvise a little bit and add things. And, you know, I added a few jokes, most of which were cut because they're not very good, but they kept a few of them in.
Well, it takes a certain kind of woman to wear a backless dress with a Beretta 70 strapped to her thigh.
Obviously, you want to make a rich story, like anyone. I spent a long time stopping the film as much as possible being linear. So whenever you have a major action sequence, for example, the first 10 minutes of the movie, you've got 3 stories being told. You've got Bond's story, you've got Eve's story, which is Naomi Harris's character, and then you've got M and Tanner back in MI6, and the 3 things interact and affect each other. And so that was very important to me, and we did that across the board. We kept the MI6 story alive at all times, away from Bond. And Bond is only partially aware of what's going on, and they're only partially aware of what's going on with Bond. So that was a deliberate choice.
I never really think about changing scripts. I always think about how can I make the best of what I have. The only thing I did want to change was the shooting of Bond, which I thought I'd never be able to live down.
Little tunnel ahead. I'm going to lose them.
Can you get into a better position?
Negative, there's no time.
Take the shot.
I say take the shot. I can't, I may hit Bond. Take the bloody shot.
It's a very, very good script, and there's a great deal to get hold of, you know. And my job is trying to play a character that will convince people that I'm that person. If you get a wonderful script like we did on this, that's not quite so hard to do.
When you have someone as good as Judy in the movie, you should use her. I mean, that seemed to me to be essential. She's there, and she's a wonderful, wonderful actress, and let's get the best out of her, make her work a bit for her money.
A lot I had to learn for this one. A lot of new things I had to learn, I'm happy to say. Not just sitting behind a desk, giving orders. I had to get what's laughingly called get out into the field.
The whole core of Silva is the relationship of with M and with James Bond. So yeah, it was very important for us to create this triangle where everybody's chasing for the other one in a very personal, emotional thing that drives my character into his actions based on that relationship. That's why I thought it was very interesting and very powerful, because it was a personal thing, and I guess that was more reliable for me as an actor to construct.
Well, there's a theme. There's a film of mothers and sons, and coming home, and there's some sort of very dramatic moments in this film. But it's also lots of explosions. Don't forget that.
You got me. Now, here's your prize. The latest thing from my local toy store. It's called Radio.
I do hope that wasn't from me.
No, but that is.
I think the problem with action is it becomes very fetishized, and it's like the action sequence, and it's like it's a standalone thing. It doesn't really mean anything to the story. To me, the central action sequence is an underground sequence, but it's so interlinked with what's going on with M, and simultaneously there's a public inquiry in which she's having to fight for her life as the boss of MI6, and Q Branch, in which Ben Whishaw is trying to follow what Bond is doing on a series of CCTV and computers. And Bond himself, and Javier Bardem's character Silva, and he's pursuing him through the underground, that actually it ceases to be an action sequence. It is simply a piece of, I hope, exciting filmmaking in a good story. But in actual fact, there are an enormous number of individual stunts in that sequence, but they feel, I hope, integrated properly, so they don't just feel like they're standalone. Look at this, isn't this a cool stunt?
You're often running with a loaded weapon, and there's scenery that's falling down around you, and you've got to hit a certain mark. And I mean, there's just so much going on. And particularly, working with the train, for instance, if you mess up and get it wrong, then that's like a half-an-hour reset to get it back into position. Or in the courtroom, for instance, where there's gunfire going and the whole place kind of explodes and the scenery falls down, if you mess up then, it's like a 2-hour reset. So it's a completely different way of working than doing regular acting.
I'm a great believer of the stunt doubles. Huh? I think they do a great job, and they are there for a reason. I mean, I did nothing compared to what Daniel does.
He makes it look very easy, but it's really not. I mean, 130 days of just relentless 5 o'clock starts and the physical pressure of the role. I said to him, I'm going to do this with a stunt guy because it's going 50 miles an hour on top of a train, fist fight over a 500-foot drop, and you've only got one cable attaching you. And he said, no, let me have a go. And he said, well, all right, we'll go slowly to begin with. He went 20 miles an hour. Go a bit faster, 30 miles an hour. And, before you know it, half an hour later, he's travelling at 50 miles an hour. And my heart was genuinely in my mouth. I kept saying, you don't have to do this. But what happens when you do it, and you're Daniel, is it lifts the whole crew. And it's so exciting, and there's a real sense that there's a leader amongst the cast. And that if he cares enough to do this, woe betide anyone who doesn't care about their job.
You can tell he brings his energy and his mood, which both are very extraordinary, into the set. And I think at the end, a set is taken by the energy of the film director, the director of the movie, and also the main protagonist. Those are the ones that create the atmosphere in a set. And that's why the atmosphere was so fun and enjoyable and creative, because Sam and Daniel were the ones who were really putting the whole weight on their shoulders.
I do enjoy the pressure. It's a big part of it for me, and I think that one of the things on shooting a movie of this size, you're shooting 6-7 months, and most movies are done 3 to 4 months. So your energy levels have to remain as high as possible, and that's a struggle for everybody on the set. So I try and help motivate that if I can. Other people try and then motivate me when I lag. But you have to kind of remember what you're doing. You're making a James Bond movie, and never forget that.
James Bond.